If you think about that, it means that we have rights that come from God, and that's why they're unalienable, because they do not come from government that can take them away again. We delegate some of our authority to form a government to protect those rights and nothing more. So government, therefore, has no rights, no authority other than what it received from the individuals who received the rights from God. Now, if I, therefore, as an individual, do not have a God-given right to take your money by force for the noble cause of a mule museum in Bishop, California, then where did government get that right? Where did Congress get that right? If I, as an individual, do not have a God-given right to take the money by force from the people of Bishop, California to pay for beach sand in Wildwood, New Jersey, then where did Congress get that right? If I, as an individual, do not have a God-given right to take your money to bail out Wall Street banksters, then where did Congress get that money, that authority? If I, as an individual, did not receive from the holy God of heaven the authority to take your money by force to fund United Nations population control programs of forced abortion and forced sterilization in China and third world nations, then where the hell did Congress get it? From whom? Where, if not the holy God? It does my heart good to see so many rallying in defense of the principles our founding fathers prayed for, bled for, and died for. Let me tell you a little story about one of those. This is Abraham Clark from New Jersey, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Abraham Clark had two sons, both officers in the Continental Army. They were captured by the British. When the British found that these were sons of Abraham Clark, they imprisoned them on a dreadful ship of stench and death in New York Harbor. It was their intention to starve the young men to death in an effort to pressure Abraham Clark to relent his signing of the Declaration. But even for the lives of his children, Abraham Clark would not go back on the principle, the godly principles that he had signed on to. Fortunately, his sons managed to survive by the sacrificial efforts of other prisoners on the ship, pushing breadcrumbs through the keyhole lock of the cell they were in. It's a bit of the sacrifice that was made for us. I thank you for so many of you coming here in defense of our sacred Constitution, and I use that word sacred intentionally. A tree is judged by its fruit. For over 200 years, our sacred Constitution had afforded us the liberty to prosper. America became a light on a hill, radiating strength, peace, prosperity, health, hope, and countless miraculous technological advances to the far reaches of an oppressed world. That's the Constitution Party platform. That's the platform our founding fathers gave their lives for. The problems America now faces is not the result of the Constitution. It's the result of the jellyfish in Congress who refuse to restrain their legislative passions to the clear boundaries prescribed by the U.S. Constitution. And I might add, as jellyfish, they sting us every chance they get.
Why do you insult jellyfish?
But it's not fair. I'm insulting jellyfish. It's not fair to put all congressmen in that category. They're just like lawyers. It's not fair that a mere 99% of lawyers give all the rest a bad name. God bless Ron Paul. There's a man with a backbone. And Scott Garrett. Again and again, you'll see votes of over 400 to 1. And you don't even have to look to see who that one is. You know that one man with courage, that's Ron Paul. He needs allies there. If I had been elected, my intention was to go as a missionary to Congress and pick a fight every day. One of my most prized possessions is a picture of myself with Ron Paul at the 50th anniversary of the John Birch Society. The major media has done all they dare to treat Ron Paul as the invisible man. Running for Congress in the 2nd District against Frank Lobiondo as a Constitution Party candidate, I also learned what it was like to be treated by the media as the invisible man. But thank God for the American ingenuity that invented the internet, which the United Nations wants to get their sticky New World Order fingers on to control it. How many of you have ever attended a pro-life rally, like by show of hands, very many, like in D.C., where there'd be over 500,000 there in support of lives, innocent lives, and you'd come back home and you'd watch the evening news, and the major media was reporting, oh, there was 5,000 or even as much as 50,000, but certainly not what was really there. And then they'll give equal time to a handful of pro-death activists on the other side of town. So we know the duplicity and the biased agenda of the media. I bet not 1 in 1,000 are aware that in 1983, America was only 2 states away from a constitutional convention. And what that is in 1787, the Articles of Confederation went into convention to be tweaked a little bit. But the nature of a convention is that they have the option, they can scrap the document that went in and start from scratch and give us an entirely new document, a whole new foundation and structure. And that's what happened to the Articles of Confederation. But by the grace of God, there was God-fearing men, patriots back then, and they gave us our present United States Constitution. Well, anyway, if that were to happen today, it would be a socialist shark-feeding frenzy on our Bill of Rights. Our Constitution would be scrapped. Article 5 of the United States Constitution provides that if at any time 2/3 of the state legislatures call for a convention, that our Constitution would be put into convention. That's 34 states. In 1983, 32 states had standing convention calls. We were 2 states away from scrapping the United States Constitution. It was the John Birch Society, so smeared by the media, that single-handedly saved the United States Constitution, and people don't even know about it. God bless the John Birch Society. They've got a table back here. Again, in the early 90s, we were 2 states away from a convention. And there was a coalition of organizations like the John Birch Society and Phyllis Schlafly's Eagle Forum that stood up to it. And that's when I came on board. I testified in Trenton, trying to stop the bill here in New Jersey. And I'll tell you a little story about Frank Lobiondo, who's now the congressman. Back then, in the early 90s, he was an assemblyman in New Jersey, in Trenton. And the bill came up, and I was fighting it. And I had a couple of dozen quotations from constitutional scholars, the head of law school of Yale University and Harvard University. And he sat in my kitchen for half hours. I went over these quotations stating how a constitutional convention would result in the scrapping of the United States Constitution. It would be the end of America. And he sat there nodding his head for about a half hour. He understood the severe danger of it, and then he went ahead and voted for the bill anyway. And I called him up and said, Frank, you knew this thing was to scrap the United States Constitution. It was under the guise of the pretense of a balanced budget amendment. And his answer was, well, what would people have thought if they read in the paper that I voted against the balanced budget amendment? God forbid that he should not be reelected to the state assembly. He was willing to scrap the United States Constitution, that God forbid he might have to go out and get a real job. Well, he went on to become a congressman. And he's been a congressman ever since. And the thorn in my side, and I let him know it every time I get it, every chance I get. Well, the other assemblyman, Mr. Gibson, he wrestled with it, and he called me up the morning of the vote, and he said, I'm going to vote against it. He said, I had no sleep. I have to vote against it. And he did. And he didn't go on to be a congressman.